Hey, welcome to Film versus Movie, the podcast where we debate the cinema you hate. I'm your co-host, Belton DeLaine-Facey.
And my name's Chris Shurr.
And on this podcast, we watch the films that have been slandered, desecrated, and forced to harvest all their grain by public opinion. And one of us tells you why it's actually pretty good.
And the other one tells you why it's a steaming pile of shit.
And today, we are debating Zack Snyder's latest two-parter, Rebel Moon. Most notably, he originally pitched this as a Star Wars movie. It got rejected, and now he made his own original thing.
That's on brand. Like, I could see that watching the movie. I feel like if he was going to make it his own thing, he needed to get away from everything having to do with Star Wars, though.
Oh, see, I'm the opposite. I'm like, they should have leaned even more in it deriving from Star Wars.
Like, they should have been like, there once was a famous Luke that we can't talk about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If I went over the script, I would be like, you should mention somewhere that Korra's last name is like Cloud Runner or something like that.
Yeah, I'm just like, I got caught up where I'm like, man, they should have spelled Korra with 2 R's.
I feel like that was just for merchandising purposes. They're like, all right, guys, if we spell Korra with 2 R's, there's a trademark. And that's going to cause some problems.
Yeah. Well, do you think there's a trademark on 2R Korra? It's a name, I feel like.
Not a common one, though.
Can you trademark a name?
If it's uncommon enough, you can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like I'm pretty sure Shrek is trademarked, but you can't trademark Brian.
Okay. Now I need to know the limits of what you can trademark. Like you definitely can't trademark Chris, but like if you spelled it really stupidly, could you trademark it? Like with 5 Z's?
Probably.
Okay. Then
all right.
I've got work to do.
All right. So on to the plot of Rebel Moon, starting with part 1. We're introduced to the Imperial Motherworld Empire that is taking over the galaxy, and Admiral Atticus Noble arrives on the moon of Velt, and he's there searching for a group of rebels. He meets with the village leader, offers to buy their surplus grain. The leader claims they barely have enough to survive, and they don't have anything to sell them. Then a farmer named Gunner and it says like, hey, actually we do have some to spare, like let's sell it, make some extra money. Instead of just going with the deal, Noble just kills the leader and orders the village to prepare the grain for them in 10 weeks, and he leaves some soldiers and a robot to oversee them.
Do you think if he had just listened and not mentioned the surplus grain, they would have just left?
I imagine they wouldn't immediately left. They probably would have inspected things for themselves.
Okay, yeah. I kind of got the feeling that dude was going to die no matter what.
Yeah.
As soon as he said no.
Yeah, like at the very least, just give him a small amount, being like, this is what we have. Instead, Noble's like, yeah, we're going to come back for everything now.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like flying spaceships, like warp drives, grain shouldn't really be the biggest thing on these people's minds.
Yeah, because throughout both films, they act like the grain from this moon is the only grain that exists, and like that's the only thing people eat.
Okay, and they also go to a different town on the same moon by horseback, so they can't be the only community making grain on this moon. Like, there's got to be like 10 other agrarian communities within this single moon.
Yeah, they just need like Yelp for space. It'd be like, all right, this grain didn't work out. Where else can we go?
What about some like UV lights? Maybe just grow it on the ship.
All right. So while the soldiers are overseeing the town, they try to take one of the village girls. A villager named Korra kills them and responds and warns the villagers they'll be massacred unless they have a defense. And so Korra and Gunner journey to recruit more warriors to defend the village. On the way to their first spot, Korra tells them she's a former Imperial soldier adopted by the commander. She was assigned to defend the royal princess who was supposed to bring peace, but she, along with the royal family, were killed, and her adopted father became ruler. And so that brings them to the first town. They go to a bar, which is really cantina scene from Star Wars.
Yep.
Just less good music though.
Yeah, the music wasn't as good. They had a weird, like, what was it, like a syringe blob that could take over people's bodies?
Yeah, it was like an active parasite that no one really paid attention to. Like I feel like it is equivalent to if ticks were the size of house cats, and you were just at a bar and a tick was just chilling on someone's arm. Like there'd be some reaction. Everyone was just too nonchalant.
I feel like it was also just like all humans and one tick plus some weird bounty hunter guys. Like there isn't that much variety in shape except for the one tick. I don't know. Like that always bothers me about it. The Star Wars did it right where they're like, look at all the shapes and colors and everything.
I mean, there was the bartender with just the like 4 long arms.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Which I'm just imagining being in that universe, you're born with those arms. It's just like, well, you're either a server or a bartender. That's what you're good for.
And he's like, I could hold 4 guns. And they're like, no, you're too weird for that.
All right. So at the cantina, they get into an altercation and recruit Kai, who's a smuggler that decides to join them. He leads them to recruit two others, Tarek, who is a beast farmer in servitude who tames a wild beast to get his freedom, and then Nemesis, a swordswoman with cybernetic enhancements. While they're there, she like kills this human-inspired creature that kidnapped some kids.
She went on a whole rant about it.
Yeah, yeah. Like there's more to it, but I feel like that was more just to like show off what she can do.
Yeah.
And so then they arrive at Gladiator Arena to find former Imperial General Titus, who is just super drunk, and after a pep talk, he joins them to avenge fallen soldiers. I do feel like they could have done more, considering they gave action scenes to the other people that they recruit, and they just give him a 1-minute speech.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. He's like a drunk. He was in a gladiator coliseum, so that's kind of cool. Like, I feel like it gives him an air of mystery. But they're like, oh, this dude's going to kick ass because he's drunk at a gladiator coliseum and he's still alive. So we don't really need to show. We're going to allude to what he does.
True.
But yeah, they could have used it.
All right. So after that, they go to a different planet to recruit members of the Blood Axe clan. This is a rebel group the Imperial forces were originally searching for, and Gunner had sold grain to them just to make a profit. And their leader and a few others join them. After they leave, Noble eradicates the planet for assisting rebels, and on their way out, Kai tells Korra, "Hey, you know what? I believe in your cause. I want to join you guys, but there's one last delivery I have to make, and then I'm out of the smuggling life." And then, in the words of General Akbar, it's a trap. And Kai turns them over to Noble and Gunner is told to kill Korra, but frees her instead and frees everyone else. In the ensuing battle, the leader of the Blood Axes dies. Korra kills Noble, and they all return to Veld. But then the Motherworld forces recover Noble's body and resurrect him. And that's where part 1 ends.
Yeah. Well, no, he gets sucked in through like a water computer and ends up on like an ice world and has a brief conversation with the king.
Yeah, it's like, so I honestly, like, I wasn't quite sure. It felt like a hallucination that they gave him to like give him his mission of like, hey, go Belt, take the grain, take Korra alive.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he was actually talking to the king. The king seemed angry. I don't know. That you think it was just a hallucination to get him back on track?
Like, I thought it was like something they implanted in his mind. It didn't occur to me that they just like hooked him up to a phone line or something.
Yeah, I thought it was just a phone line. I thought it was like a weird, goopy, liquidy phone line that they... Remember in Star Wars when he's talking to the Emperor and he's like standing on that pad? I thought it was like a hologram pad, except it was kind of like, there's a novel called like something Carbon, Black Carbon.
Altered Carbon?
Yeah, where they like transport him just through information, and that's kind of what was happening in my head.
I mean, they hooked him up to a bunch of stuff to keep him alive, and then and so I thought that was just, hey, while you're here, you have a message.
I thought he was actually talking. It wasn't very clear. Either one of us could be right.
Yeah.
But
all right, so part 2 begins with the crew return to Velt, believing Noble is dead and the village is safe. Then Eris, Motherworld soldier who's working as a double agent, informs them that Noble's alive and the ship's coming in 5 days. And so the fires join the village, and they're like, we're gonna harvest the hell out of this grain. Well, like, you know, basically that's the message in like more motivating words. But yeah, that's their plan. Harvest the grain, and their plan is to use that as leverage so the village just doesn't get bombed. Which is like, again, begs the question, how valuable is this grain?
Apparently grain's not a very populous species across the galaxy.
Yeah, like the village should be rich if it's this valuable.
Like, I feel like if I were going to be committing to wars across multiple planets, I'd destroy one of the planets and just plant nothing but fucking grain. And then I'd go to one of these cities that I've just destroyed everything, to enslave all the people, just have them growing grain all day. Corn, mangoes, guava. My soldiers would be well fed if I had that. If I had a warp travel with the big space vagina. In the opening scene, they just open up this giant space vagina and just drive a fucking spaceship through it like it's a big dick. It's a dick-shaped spaceship going through a giant vagina-shaped tear in reality.
I almost want to say the VFX supervisor deserves a raise for that.
It was eye-catching, that's for sure. You're like, oh, maybe this will be an interesting film.
Okay, so they're harvesting the grain. Korra and Gunnar just start banging. She tells him that she actually was an accomplice in killing the royal family and actually killed the princess herself, but was framed as a mastermind. So that's when she escaped the army. And so for 2 days before the mothership comes back, the fires train the villagers in warfare, prepare make their bunkers, just prepare the town. And so night before, the group just gets together, reveals their various paths to each other. Korra doesn't reveal hers. So when Noble arrives, he immediately has soldiers find out where they're protecting all the women and children. Korra tries to surrender in exchange for the safety of the village, but Gunnar triggers the ambush and it's all out battle now. Titus and Tarek fight off the first wave while Nemesis dies protecting the women and children. And then the second wave comes. Gunnar and Cora sneak onto the Dreadnought ship. In the ensuing fight, they kill Noble, but Gunnar dies from his injuries. Day after, while everyone's mourning, Cora reveals her full past. Titus says he already knew and reveals the princess is still alive. And so the movie ends with the group declaring that they're gonna find her. And that's the end of Rebel Moon Part 2.
Okay, in the scene where she's like planting bombs on the engine, were they shoveling coal into the fires?
I didn't assume it was coal, but considering all this is over grain, that would make sense.
It was just like black rocks that a bunch of dusty dudes were just shoveling into a regular ass fire.
I mean, I think that that's one thing they try to do. Like even though like all this is in space and has different technology, they still want some parts to feel like old school and tangible.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't use coal anymore. Like that just she could have just like put it on an oil tank or something.
Yeah. I hope the coal planet is at least rich.
No, they're definitely. Isn't that where what's the sword woman's name?
Nemesis?
Yeah, isn't that where Nemesis is from? Some mining planet?
Oh yeah, true. All right. So yeah, with Rebel Moon, Zack Snyder said he originally came up with the idea for this in the 90s, but he pitched it to Lucasfilm in 2012, soon after, as a Star Wars movie, soon after Disney bought them. It was rejected. According to Zack Snyder, it's because it wasn't based on any existing Star Wars material, so like comics, TV shows, any of the tie-in stuff. He pitched it to Warner Brothers as both a film and a video game. It was rejected there, and it eventually landed at Netflix. Apparently, Netflix was concerned about the full length, but Zack Snyder didn't want to compromise any of the stories, so that's the reason it was split into 2 movies. And the total budget for the 2 films is $166 million. Obviously, because it was released to Netflix, it didn't make anything at the box office. So Zack Snyder developed the story. He worked with 2 other people on the scripts, Kurt Johnston, who he previously worked with on 300, and Shane Hatton, who he previously worked with on Army of the Dead. And Zack Snyder also served as cinematographer for the film, which makes sense because like even people who just don't like Zack Snyder movies will say like, you know, he knows how to compose a shot. He would be a great cinematographer.
Yeah, he did it. It was a nicely shot film.
Yeah. All right. And so part 1 was released on Netflix on December 22nd, 2023. It got 23.9 million views its opening weekend. As of recording, its Rotten Tomatoes score is 21%. Its IMDb score is 5.6. Part 2 came out April 19th of this year, and it got 21.4 million views its opening weekend. Currently stands at 15% on Rotten Tomatoes and 5.2 on IMDb.
Okay, so it was 15%. I remember texting you that. It's at 52% now.
Okay, so one thing I found weird, because usually when you Google a movie on the Google page, it'll give you the Rotten Tomatoes score. For some reason, for the Rebel Moon movies, it gives the audience score and not the critics' Rotten Tomatoes score.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, because I also found that weird, but I checked. It doesn't happen with any other movie I put in.
Huh.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Zack Snyder. He's such
Yeah.
a stand-up guy. Everyone just will bend over backwards for him.
I mean, that is something I've heard that's true. He's just a really nice guy and really good to work with, which is why a lot of people just like to work with him.
Yeah.
And so on a March 6th episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, Zack Snyder was a guest. And on that podcast, he, based on viewership numbers Netflix gave him, he did his math and claimed more people saw Rebel Moon Part 1 than the Barbie movie. Which, if you follow our TikTok page, we do have a video explaining why it's kind of crazy to even try to compare Netflix views to box office numbers. But to say this movie got more people to watch it than the highest grossing movie of 2023 is insane.
Also, it's just kind of like everyone walking out of Barbie was like, fuck yeah, Barbie rocked. And everyone finishing watching Rebel Moon Part 1 was just like, that was a film?
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing, because basically the way Netflix views works is they just take the total hours watched divided by the total runtime and use that to calculate. So if you got 30 minutes into a movie and then you're like, this isn't for me, and shut it off, that contributes towards a view.
Okay, also, Barbie had multiple Oscar noms. It was a cultural like centerpiece for that year. Rebel Moon was an afterthought. It was like, oh shit, that didn't turn out as good as I thought it was going to be. Like, that's kind of what was the thing about Rebel Moon.
Yeah, it does. Like, it's just an insane quote, but I do think Zack Snyder has the utmost self-confidence where he believes it. Like that's a thing. He's just super confident in himself. That's why, like, if you like, people can get quotes from him. Like, I remember at some point, I don't remember who interviewed him, but his past movie Sucker Punch, a lot of people called it sexist. In the interview, he said, if you think it's sexist, that means you're sexist. Like, who else is gonna say stuff like that?
That's actually a pretty decent way to deal with the press. I feel like just like throw it right back in their face and then don't elaborate.
Oh yeah, because I mean, so recently on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, in regards to his movies, Zack Snyder said, if you don't like them, you're asking for focus group approved movies, which that kind of gets to like my biggest gripe with Zack Snyder and a lot of his fans, because they keep saying whenever his movies are bad, it's like, oh, the studio messed with it. He didn't get to do everything he wanted to do. But it's like, that's the case with every studio produced movie. And if you're interested in filmmaking or how the Hollywood industry works, I highly recommend a book called Audienceology. It's written by Kevin Goetz, who runs a company that puts on a lot of audience test screenings for Hollywood studios. And in the book, he explains, like, yeah, this is a pretty normal part of the process. And he even says in there, a lot of times the studio already knows what's wrong with the movie. It's his job to tell the director, so they're not the bad guy. So I think my thing is, like, as much as Zack Snyder fans want to complain about this is something every studio director goes through. I don't know why they think he's this magical exception.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So back to Rebel Moon. This is intended to be a franchise. One of the writers, Kurt Johnson, in a recent interview with Screen Rant, he said, like, they had an original trilogy, but as of now, the plan is to split all those into 2 movies for a total of 6 movies in a franchise.
Okay. Does this movie really need that much stuff?
That's the thing, because watching these it's clear Zack Snyder dedicated a lot of this to world building. So it does feel like he planted seeds for further stories.
Okay, yeah, I know he did that. But also, do you want to take... let me try and like, that'd be like if they were like, oh shit, Vanilla Ice is in this movie. We need a whole Cool as Ice franchise. And then afterwards, when it got lackluster reviews and didn't really make much money, they're like, oh shit, you know what? We need a tie-in video game, 3 more Vanilla Ice albums, a graphic novel, and 4 sequels. Like,
okay, so for reference, we are recording this less than a week after part 2 came out, so there haven't been any updates on what the plan is right now. But as of September 2023, here's all of the tie-in media that was in development: a graphic novel, an animated short, a spin-off series, a co-op video game that would have been available on Netflix's game platform, and a tabletop RPG. Like, they had a lot of stuff in there. Netflix was really right on this being their biggest franchise ever. Which, as of now, I would say their biggest franchise is probably like To All the Boys I Loved Before.
I think you'd have to go into their TV series like House of Cards or Stranger Things or something.
Well, obviously Stranger Things.
Yeah, it'd be Stranger Things.
I'm thinking of their movie series.
Kissing Booth?
Yeah, that's definitely up there.
That had numbers. Okay,
yeah,
we'll Google it and we'll add it at like a caption for a TikTok video or something.
I mean, I am curious how much all this changes in the next month or so as Netflix gets more viewership numbers off of part 2.
Yeah,
because I have to imagine for $166 million, this really needs to bring people to the platform or give them a reason to stay.
I don't even get how Netflix works, really.
I'm not sure Netflix knows how Netflix works at this point.
I understand they make money through subscriptions, but like when you're like, okay, is this going to make someone be less likely to cancel or more likely to join? How do they know that it's Rebel Moon versus like a Neil Brennan comedy special or something?
I'm sure they have a slew of algorithms to figure it out.
That's fair.
Yeah. So, so that's it for all production history on this movie. And so now it's time for our opening statements. I will be defending the film.
And I'll be attacking. Do you want me to start?
Yes.
Okay. Rebel Moon is a bland movie that lets beautiful shots carry a bland remake of Star Wars to mediocrity. Sorry, let me say it so the Snyder fans can understand. The movie was boring. This film is like if you asked your mom for Star Wars and she said, "We have Star Wars at home."
All right. Some say Rebel Moon is soulless. Have those people considered they just don't know what a soul is? The 2-part film was packed with adventure while creating a new world, adding its own stamp on the classic hero's journey. It's an ambitious project that shows what's possible when you trust real artists.
All right, I'm just going to open this up. Both of these are 45-minute short films shot around an hour and 15 minutes of slow motion shots. Like, Snyder just likes to pepper in slow motion no matter what's going on. Like, if they had an Imperial officer shitting on the spaceship, it would be like slow motion toilet paper, fast motion shit noise, slow motion wipe. Like, it happens so often that everything it loses context of what's actually going on.
Okay, so so yes, there was a lot of slow-mo. That's kind of one of Zack Snyder's trademarks. I would say with this film, he uses slow-mo to progress character and story, not in the moments, but in overall. Because in the overall story, because if you notice, there's a lot more slow-mo at the beginning when characters don't really know who they are. They're still trying to come together as a team. And as the story progresses and they become closer, they have a better understanding of themselves, then there's less of it. And you get to like more just live action.
No, there's too much slow-mo through the entire movie. There is a slight decrease as more action happens, but that is because there's so much slow-mo that it works its way into parts that there should be no slow-mo. They had slow-mo just when Cora was walking down off of a spaceship. Like, it's just her, slow-mo, not even going into an exciting scene. They had slow-mo when they were processing grain and just beating the grain with like grain bats or however you process grain.
Oh, okay. Here's the thing. They needed shots of processing grain, so they got the coolest shots of processing grain ever. That processing grain could have been a Gatorade commercial. It was that intense.
No, it was just... It took a scene there. It was like it took a preparation scene and tried to make it a lot cooler than it was. You didn't need to make the slow. You need just show them processing grain.
Oh, making it cooler than it was is the point of like directing and cinematography.
No, it doesn't build tension. It just kind of like you're like, oh, okay, that's a little gregarious. It takes you out of it.
Well, I mean, you see like all the hard work, like all the fires and villagers are putting into it, and plus like that's part of when the fires really connect with the villagers instead of just being outsiders.
No, okay. Shit, I lost my point of... No, what happens is you get less shots of people processing grain because the grain processing shots end up taking 2 times the amount of time that they normally should have. I don't know. You could have built that any other way than adding slow-mo to a processing grain scene.
I mean, I feel like the most useful way they could have done it any other way was to just like add a random musical number.
Just give me a montage. Like, give me a montage of people processing grain. It doesn't need to be like this weird auteur style. Is that auteur? How do you use that as an adjective?
Artistic, yeah. Probably something like that.
I don't know. This is like Zack Snyder's style. So like, just it keeps going from slow-mo to regular motion, and it's jarring. You kind of lose track of like the speed that you should normally be watching this film.
Well, yeah, I'm sure like in those circumstances, harvesting grain is also one of those things where you know like they only have a few days to do it. So I'm sure while they're doing it, the characters felt like it was going by slow, but they also felt pressed for time. It's that conflicting feeling of time that he was portraying.
Okay, you keep putting it in terms of the plot. I'm just saying as the viewer, it took me completely out of it, where I'm just like, oh my God, another slow-mo. Oh, okay, another slow-mo. Oh, another okay, they're just using slow-mo for everything. I think even the credits started playing at different speeds. They're like, no, fuck that guy. They just rip him off the credit screen. And then they're like, oh yeah, this guy. And they move it really slowly up.
Well, yeah, if you're a movie editor and you have beef with some of the crew, you'd probably do the same thing. I will also say all the character intros were at the very least memorable, and they all and throughout both films really they all had this distinct looks and characteristics that did make them stand out from each other.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I will admit the character introductions were the coolest part of the entire first film. The beginning kind of dragged, the end I don't know. It felt like it dragged a little bit, but that was a nice little montage of making friends.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't feel like the ending dragged. I thought both films, like the ending battles, they ramped up to well, and once they got there, they just kept you in the action.
See, I thought that was definitely true for the second one. Like, I will admit that if you view both these movies, I'm getting into concessions, but I'll concess. If you view both movies as one movie and the whole point of it is they're building up to this giant battle, it did not disappoint. But as separate movies, I thought that first one was just kind of like, I don't know. It seemed a little like quick.
Yeah. I mean, I do wonder if they weren't forced to split this into two movies, what the ending battle in the first movie would look like.
I don't even know if they would have had it. I think that was just there as a way to, like, I think they would have had a betrayal, but I think it would have been over a lot quicker. I don't think they would have had like the dude die or anything, because I think it kind of would have been hard to segue in an interesting way that works within the span of a single 4-hour movie.
True.
But that's like just my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with you. Like they were interesting battles, but I thought the first one kind of dragged. It just kind of like came out of nowhere, and then it just took forever to fucking kill the guy. I was just like, just kill the guy. Like, let's get this over with. I want this movie to end.
I mean, but there was also just so much happening in that battle. You had like the blood axes in one part, Cora versus Noble in the other, and then like everyone else versus soldiers throughout. I thought for that they did a really good job, just keep helping guiding the audience to keep track of everyone, and like. I never felt lost watching that battle, where I feel like a lot of other filmmakers wouldn't have been able to put that together.
Well, I mean, how could you feel lost when half of the battle is going in slow motion? You got plenty of time to catch up to what's going on. You're like, oh, okay, they're over there and they're over there and that guy's getting shot. And oh my God, it's only been 3 seconds and I could point all of this out.
Okay, by that battle, they weren't using a lot of slow motion. I know they use it for a couple of deaths, but I'm pretty sure like by the time they get to where it's just Cora and Noble one-on-one, that's just all real time. Like I'm pretty sure they did not use slow motion for that.
I think they did, but I didn't go back to watch it again like I normally do, because there are 2 films. So I'm just gonna go with what you're saying. Yeah, I thought the characters were kind of forgettable, and I thought the writing kind of seemed like Zack Snyder was in college trying to impress a lit major. The overly formal, like bordering on Shakespeare way of talking, really, I get what he was going for. I just don't think he pulled it off very well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he wanted to have more of a grand feeling, like you are experiencing some great literature. But I also feel like it kind of distances you from the characters at first, because really you don't know the characters and they don't really know each other. And then as the story goes on, their dialogue seems to get less and less formal, more and more familiar. So I feel like that shows the progression of the characters coming together.
I don't know. It just kind of feels like you get a little used to it. But it feels like it made me feel very distant from the characters, in the sense that like it didn't feel like I could hang out with them. Like for a space movie about rebels, you should be able to be like, oh yeah, I feel like I could have a beer with them. They seem like fun people. But they're just like very overly serious people the entire film.
They're all scarred by war.
Yeah, but like even scarred people know how to like just chill for a minute and like crack a joke.
I mean, it's a matter that they don't trust each other. But I would say, well, like when Cora and Gunnar start getting together, that's when she gets much more relaxed and stops talking like she's trying to pass a 10th grade English class.
I don't know. Like there wasn't that much sarcasm. Like you gotta have your rebels, and you're not gonna be sarcastic.
I mean, you don't need sarcasm in everything. This isn't Marvel.
Okay, but also from the point that there's like a lot going on in the film thematically, in the sense that it's like a space movie, but then the first movie is also like bordering on a Western, and now you're giving them like very formal Shakespearean language. It's just, they're trying to make a cosmic gumbo, but it's kind of turning into like, I don't know, like something you made when you're a little drunk and you just tried to fit too many things together.
Okay, are you saying like it just needed like a bit more levity or like time to relax?
Yeah, that's what I think.
All right, I feel like you're just supposed to sit back and go like, oh, that's cool sometimes.
Okay, that's actually going to get to my next point. It seems like the intended audience was people who go like, that's sick, like that's cool, or Zack Snyder fans. Like, I don't know, like you don't leave it, you're like, man, that's a great movie. You're just like, that was sick. They slashed that guy and they did that. That was fucking rad, man.
I mean that's gonna be the initial appeal of, you know, a sci-fi action movie. I do and I do think that those are parts where they're like, okay, this is a spectacle. We need to make sure we get that right, because looking at the behind the scenes feature they had on Netflix, it does seem like they paid a lot of attention to the practical effects and making sure everything felt realistic for the actors. So yeah, I feel like with those moments, they're gonna make sure those are standout moments.
Okay, that's fair. But also, I didn't watch the behind the scenes. How much practical effects did they use?
A lot. Like obviously they use CGI in some parts, but like the village, they actually made the village, all the dropships, they made an actual model of one that had a functioning ramp so people could go in and out.
So did they set the village up in front of one of those like giant blue screen studios?
No. It was practically a parking lot with hills around it.
Oh, okay. That's actually pretty rad. I'll give it credit for that.
Yeah, and when it got destroyed, they actually blew it up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because watching the featurette, there's one part where Deborah Snyder, who's a co-producer on this, she was saying, yeah, it's always nerve-wracking when you know you have to blow something up, because you obviously you trust all the experts dealing with explosives, but also we only have one shot for this because we can't rebuild that house.
Okay, let's talk about the robot, because the robot needs to be brought up. They introduced like a grade A character like that and just don't have it be very involved in the plot is very disappointing.
All right, I would say I think he's clearly being set up for a sequel, because I think because he did have a conversation with Cora in part 2. He's in the midst of having an existential crisis, because for reference, what's his name? Jimmy, the robot. He was an Imperial robot programmed to help them, but after his soldiers bully them, he betrays them. So he is a robot going against his innate programming, possibly the first of his kind. He suddenly has consciousness.
Yeah, and he also has a sick ass outfit. But like, you kind of nailed it where I described it as, you made a robot that's going through an existential techno-agrarian coming-of-age story and you barely show him. And its god is a magical Disney princess, and you give me bland fuckhead characters.
I mean, I think the big question is, where would he go in that story? Because I don't think it makes sense for him to suddenly all out be supporting the villagers in this battle, but obviously he wouldn't be on the side of the mother world either.
Yeah, I don't know. They just had him like, they gave him deer antlers and like a crown and just had him go on a walkabout around the farms, essentially. Look, I'm not hating on the robot character. I just wish there was more of it. I thought the robot was like a great addition. And then when it finally jumps in, it's badass. But like, a lot less people would have died had the badass robot been there the whole time. Like, they just had a brief conversation. They didn't even really try to sway it.
Yeah, I feel like the robot is a matter of pick your poison. Because right now you're saying, hey, the robot's very interesting. We should have more of them. But there may be a draft of a script where they incorporate it in, and then everyone looked at it and was like, you know, this robot storyline doesn't tie into anything else right now. It just makes it feel more jumbled.
Look, have the robot chill out with the Aryan girl who like almost was taken by the soldiers, and just have like a nice time. I don't know. Have her be the new princess with magic. I'm not trying to write the film. All I know is you gave me a robot with deer antlers just going on walkabouts, and then in the second film, it didn't really do much until the very end. Okay,
well, now let me ask you this. If they reveal plot stuff about part 3 and you find out it's about the robot's journey, wouldn't you be excited?
Yeah, I'd lose my shit. Like, admittedly, yeah, like I'd be psyched.
Yeah, see, it's just the fusion of artistry and business.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think they should have done more with that robot. Okay, I thought the end where they're just like, oh wait, oh no, the magical girl's still alive the entire time was kind of lame. I know they're setting up a sequel. I just feel like they could have done something else.
I feel like that. I feel like for Korra's story, that was the perfect way to end it to keep the story moving forward, because that was her biggest pain of guilt and regret, and so now she has a chance to redeem herself and thinking, hey, I didn't do as much evil as I thought I did, and that also puts her more on a direct path with her evil adopted father.
Yeah, but like they just didn't really do it with much grace. Titus was just like, oh yeah, I knew all that. Anyway, the girl's alive. And credits.
I mean, Titus said it in his general voice. What more grandeur do you need?
I don't know, like a flashback, maybe get just like a little bit. Like just anything Titus related that actually shows that she may still be alive.
So that may be a matter of, again, budget is like, do we spend a bunch of money on something we don't necessarily need for these films, or do we wait until the next one to have something cool?
Yeah, but they already did the same thing basically in the last film where they revealed that Noble was still alive. They had the extra little like 8 minutes of movie.
Well, parts 1 and 2 were shot together. So
yeah, they could, I don't know. I just feel like it was kind of like lazy writing to just be like, oh, well, they're still alive. Set up the next movie. I would have tried to work it in like a little more organically than just a character running out of nowhere and just being like, yeah, so you know all that heartbreak and trauma you've been through? Turns out not true. Let's go. Like you can admit that like they could have done, I know it's like a budget thing and you could argue that for like any fault in any movie ever, but I just, in my opinion, it would have been better screenwriting to just have done like 5% more effort than just a character being like, yep, here we go.
I mean, like considering where they are, there's only so many ways to do that and to do that reveal. Because the only other way to reveal that would be to show where the princess is. The problem is that reveals it to the audience, not to Korra, and then and then also depending on what they're playing for part 3, that could ruin a surprise there.
Flashback of the robot. Robot jumps in the tank, pulls the grenade. Before it jumps up, it has this flashback where it's like, whoa, maybe I didn't see all that I remember seeing. Boom, it's hinted. Then Titus goes, slam dunk, she's still alive. Nice little alley-oop. I'm not a film writer. I'm not a filmmaker, Belle, and you know that, but like, I don't know. That's my opinion on the matter. It just felt kind of forced. Like, could you imagine if at the end of A New Hope, Han Solo was just like, oh yeah, by the way, Luke, Vader's your father. And they're like, we better go confront your father. Start of movie 5.
Okay, doesn't A New Hope start with the reveal that they've already at least started working on the next Death Star though?
Yeah, but that's setting up movie 6.
That's setting up the rest of the series.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. But yeah, they show it though. They show the Death Star being built. It's not just a character being like, oh yeah, I think they're building another one. We better go destroy it.
Well, yeah, because that's something where it makes sense for the protagonist to not know, but so they're only revealing it to the audience.
I don't know. We got different opinions.
All right. Well, now it's time for our concessions. This is where I give 3 things I don't like about the film, and Chris gives 3 things she does like.
It's a beautifully shot movie. I can't hate on the quality of the shots. They're well put together. They do a nice job with like the color of everything. Can't hate on the shots in the movie.
Yeah, but that is one thing. Like everyone again agrees, Zack Snyder does really well. Is just compose really nice shots. That's why no matter what, the trailers for his films always look great. And my first concession, it is way too much slow-mo. I mean, like the frustrating thing about this is something Zack Snyder constantly gets criticized for, and then he just keeps doing it.
I think he just likes slow-mo.
Yeah, he clearly does like it, but it does feel excessive. It feels like in 3rd grade when everyone learns you can do crazy transitions on PowerPoint, and so everyone just does like stuff willy-nilly. It feels like that. It feels like they shot everything between 60 to 80 frames per second just so in the editing bay he could just go slow-mo there, slow-mo there, slow-mo there.
It's Zack Snyder's star swipe.
Yeah.
The final battle wasn't bad. It was paced fairly well. They did a good job with stakes. For a pair of 2 movies all about one battle, they didn't disappoint with it. Yeah, I was lying when I said it was paced.
The final battles were really exciting to watch. Yeah. My next concession, the pseudo Shakespearean dialogue, it does make it difficult for other characters to have their own separate voice, and plus because he uses Cora to just give her own backstory a lot, the way she delivers it, you know how sometimes in book to film adaptations they'll take a backstory that was just prose or internal dialogue in the book and then just have a character say out loud in the movie. That's what it felt like, except I know there wasn't a book this came from.
Yeah, it was stiff. It was very stiff language. Yeah, I was kind of struggling with the 3rd one. So I just wrote, they had a lot of women and gender ambiguous folks with short hair, and that's always nice. I like women and non-binary folks with short hair. Yeah. Everyone was rocking like a killer short haircut. Cora by the end had a mohawk. That was badass. They had good hairstyling in that movie.
Yeah, which like her haircut at the end, like the weird thing I find about that is that was the haircut she was forced to have when she was an Imperial soldier. So by the time we see her in the movie, she grew her hair out, and then at the end she decides to cut her hair back into the soldier haircut. What was the meaning there?
You don't want to have hair in your face when you're fighting?
Do they not have hair ties in this
no,
universe?
Apparently not. Everyone's either got beautiful wavy hair. I think everyone with long hair died. The woman with the M name who used the swords. I always blank on her name. Maintenance?
Nemesis?
Yeah. Didn't the Beast Rider die too?
I don't think he died.
Who got kicked out of the spaceship? Remember when the spaceships are taking off and he jumps onto the spaceship and then Noble stabs him and throws him out of the ship?
I thought
was that some random villager?
I think that was a random villager because I thought it was Gunner that died. Oh, I'm looking at the plot.
No, Gunner
now.
died too.
Yeah, Gunner definitely died.
That was, again, with his death, I was just like, eh.
Yeah, I don't think that that dude died. Yeah. Also for reference on this guy, entire first movie, he does not wear a shirt at all.
Yeah, Zack Snyder knows what sells.
Yeah, they're just by the end of the first movie, they're on this planet that's just really dark, cloudy, and it's like you don't feel a breeze at all. My last concession. The characters' emotional are not very well done, especially in the first movie, because as they're picking everyone up, it's like the task they're doing to kind of show off their abilities, it feels like it just means less and less to the main characters as it goes on. Like when they get to the Beast Tamer, like they make a wager saying like, hey, if he fails, we'll become your slaves. So they have personal stakes in it. But then by the time they get to Nemesis, it's like, oh, she's doing her thing, we just have to watch. And
then by the time they get to Titus, they're like, it'd be cool if you fought with us. Yeah. Remember the dead homies? And he's like, oh shit, yeah. And then he's like, all right, let's go.
Also, watching this movie is weird because Zack Snyder's the film he did for Netflix before this, Army of the Dead, is really good, and it doesn't have all these flaws we're talking about. Like I guess that was one thing for. That was frustrating watching this movie. Watching it kind of felt like watching a native New Yorker drive anywhere else. Like, they have all the skills to do this well, just none of the willpower and conviction.
All right, we got to get to our closing statements.
All right. So now it's time for our closing statements. Would you like to go first?
Yeah. This movie was a okay, I can't keep doing that. All right, this movie was a mediocre recreation of Star Wars with a lot less heart. The characters are unapproachable, the writing is over formal, and the plot was just mediocre. I already said that. It was just all right. 4 out of 10 stars. I'd watch the next one, though.
All right. Zack Snyder isn't just a visionary, but a champion of original cinema. Rebel Moon used the freedom of franchise connection wouldn't allow to take risks, with most of them paying off. We have now been prepped for the story to continue. The only thing left is to sit back and trust the process as it all unfolds. Also, for those who don't know, I'm the one that really handles the TikTok account. You're leaving me to wolves with the Snyder Bros on that one.
Do you want me to take over the TikTok account for the next week?
No, I secretly like fighting with Snyder Bros.
Okay, cool.
All right. Well, this has been another episode of Film versus Movie. Thanks for listening in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.